Hello everyone. So in this short video, I would like to demonstrate you one of the most famous service in AWS, and the service name is ECS. ECS stands for Elastic Cloud Service. Elastic Cloud Service is one of the service that falls under the containers of your choice. For example, if you want to run a container, all you need to have is, okay, if you want to run a container, all you need to have is you need to have a Linux machine, and on the top of the Linux machine, and you're supposed to install Docker on the top of it. So for example, Docker is a runtime, container runtime. If you would like to run any sort of Docker containers, you need to have Docker installed on it. So for example, if you want to run a container, all you need to do is you need to have Docker installed on the top of it. So for example, this is my Linux machine, and on the top of my Linux machine I have Docker installed on it. Once the Docker is installed on the top of my Linux machine, I can run any number of containers of my choice. Okay, it doesn't matter whether it is a CentOS Linux server, whether it is Amazon Linux, it doesn't matter. If you install the container runtime, you can run any container of your choice. Okay, so here, if you're running containers on the top of a Linux machine, so the whole responsibility falls under your bucket, which means so you're responsible for maintaining the patching of the Linux server, and you're responsible for maintaining the backup of your Linux server, and you're responsible for maintaining everything. Okay, technically you're supposed to maintain the patching, you're supposed to maintain the backup, you're supposed to maintain the availability of the machine, everything. Okay, so this is the main this is how the containers are being running on the top of the Linux server. For example, you don't have a infrastructure team or a Linux team or a team who can maintain your infrastructure. So for this example, I have just given you one Linux server as an example. You can have a number of servers. For example, in this case, you just have one server. For example, assume you have 10 Linux servers. Who will maintain this responsibility of the maintenance? Okay, who maintains the responsibility of it? So if you don't have a team who can manage this Linux infrastructure and maintaining the container runtime and checking the availability of the machine, so you can hand over the responsibility to Amazon, telling that I would like to run the containers. You just provide the container runtime so that I can run my containers of my choice. So that if that sort of service falls under the category of Amazon Elastic Container Service, this is one of the most reliable service which offers you to run containers on Amazon's platform. Amazon takes care of running and running your containers. So it works as pay-as-you-go model based on the number of containers and the amount of CPU, memory, and storage that you consume. Based on that, Amazon will going to bill you on pay-as-you-go model or seconds basis. Again, ECS is a service which needs to be working, which will work as a cluster, which will work as a cluster. So if you want to operate ECS, ECS can be operated in two ways. First, you can either create a cluster, and then you can create your own servers, EC2 servers or EC2 instances, and then you can add those EC2 instances to the ECS cluster, and you can run the containers on the top of the servers. Again, here still the operational falls under your category, right? Again, the operationals falls under your category. If you don't want it, if you want everything to be managed by Amazon 100%, if you want to go with serverless approach is not it. There won't be any servers. It means that your responsibility of you on servers is zero. That means you don't maintain the servers. Let Amazon manage it. So that falls under the category of Fargate. Okay, Fargate is a serverless container running service. Is one of the launch type in ECS. Okay, ECS can be launched or worked either by you creating the servers and asking Amazon to maintain it on your behalf, but patching everything again comes under your responsibility. Or alternatively, you can also run your containers, or you can also create your ECS cluster in the serverless approach. So in this demo, I would like to show you both. I would like to show you both. Hope it is clear. So my very first action is to show you how to create an ECS cluster. And once the ECS cluster is created, I would like to show you something called as task definition. And in the task definition, I'm going to demonstrate what needs to be created and what needs to be told to the container to do, and all such things I would like to discuss. Without wasting any time, let me go to AWS. So for example, I'm already in the ECS panel. If you are not in the ECS panel, just search for ECS. ECS is a highly secure, reliable, and scalable way to run your containers. Click this. Okay, so Amazon Elastic Container Cluster. So for people who are using old accounts, you would see the mode in an older way. If you don't like this way, you can always open it. Just go enable the new experience. It looks good. So they are telling that ACS, Amazon ECS is a highly scalable and fast container management service that makes it easy to run, stop, and manage clusters on a cluster. For example, if you're running an e-commerce platform, and you are running a sale, during that sale the number of people who are doing the payments of your application are increasing. For example, your expectation was per minute 100 transactions are expected to happen, but during the sale per minute you are expecting 10,000 transactions. So rather than you creating the servers to scale up and adding it to the cluster, if you go in Fargate, so in a serverless approach based on the load, Amazon scales it. Okay, so this is one way of handling the containers on the top of Elastic Container Cluster. Again, if you are talking about, hey, why we are not using Elastic Kubernetes Cluster or EKS Kubernetes service, that's a different story. But if your business wants to run containers on the top of some container runtime, reason can be whatever it may be. If your business wants to run container as a container on the top of some container orchestration platform, container service is one of the option. You can alternatively run on the top of Kubernetes cluster. It's Kubernetes is again a container orchestrator, but it's again choice. So we are talking in the context of running containers on the top of Amazon offered Elastic Container Service, which is a PaaS. Okay, so let's get started. I would like to create a container cluster. Okay, so click it, uh, cloud, okay, learning ECS cluster. Okay, just the name of your choice. In business, when you are in the business world, you need to give names which make sense. Okay, you need to tell where your ECS cluster has to be created. End of the day, again, it is going to be a compute machine. You also need to tell under what all subnets you want this to be placed. For example, I want this to be operated in 4 zones, and the name. And once it's done, okay, by default, whether you choose it or not, okay, serverless is something which will be selected by default, and it cannot be changed, because serverless, very soon Amazon is going to restrict you to using Fargate. Okay, so right now Amazon is going to offer you 3 options. Okay, one is AWS Fargate. When you say Fargate, it's completely serverless. That means Amazon takes care of your hardware maintenance, everything. You tell Amazon I want 100 containers, it's going to run the 100 containers. So how it's going to provision the underlying EC2 servers, how it's going to provision, how it's going to destroy, it's not our headache. But for the sake of this, I'm going to create EC2 instances as well. And another option that it gives you is, for example, you can also use, for example, you're having a conventional on-prem or a data center where you're having huge amount of servers and you want ECS cluster to run your workloads on the top of your data center workloads. That option is also possible with the help of, okay, external instances using ECS. So this is option which I didn't see in other cloud providers like Google Cloud or Azure. So for the sake of recording and the demo, I would like to use both Fargate and launching EC2 instances. In this recording, I cannot demonstrate adding external servers, but now I can show you how to add how to include EC2 servers. So when you say EC2 servers, it comes under the category of auto scaling group, where we can define, okay, we can define the number of servers can be minimum 2 and maximum 10 based on the load. Scaling should happen in between 2 to 5. You can define that. So you can tell the operating system to use for the underlying servers that it is going to come up. And instance type, you can mention whether it can be, I'm mentioning T3.medium. T3.medium is not free. You can go with T2.micro. The reason why I'm giving T3 medium is to not to increase the length of the recording. So bigger the size, quicker the actions. I'm telling the minimum capacity is 1 and the maximum is 5. So this is one option. So whether you can tell, okay, so you can restrict people accessing the underlying servers provisioned by the Amazon. You can tell whether you can SSH to it or not. If you tell SSH, you need to supply the appropriate keys, ensure you have the appropriate keys. Or if you don't want anyone to SSH, just say that no SSH. And that's it. If you want to enable monitoring, you can allow monitoring inside. So cloud monitoring, CloudWatch is going to take the metrics from it, and it's going to give you the responsible metrics to you. And tags, I'm not going to choose any sort of tags. So create cluster. It's going to create a cluster, ECS cluster. So it's going to take 2 to 3 minutes of time. So it's going to take 2 to 3 minutes time. Let it load. I might trim the video, keeping the length in mind. So, but it's going to take 2 to 3 minutes of time. Let it create. So it's creating, and let it wait. It's gonna take 2 to 3 minutes of time. It's been a minute so far, so it will take 2 more minutes of time. And the size of the cluster and the type of instances that you have used also determines the time taken to provision the cluster. If you go with a server type of T2.micro or T3.micro, which gives you one CPU and 1 gigs of memory, things would be little slow. It's almost like the same concept. If you would like to install a operating system on the top of a server with one CPU and 1 gig of memory, if it is taking 1 minute of time, if the same operating system is installed on the top of server with 4 CPUs and 4 gigs of memory, it will just take 10 seconds of time. So it purely depends. So you need to wait for 2 to 3 minutes of time. 1.5 more minute left. I just calculated the time. The overall time taken by it is 2 minutes. So you could see the status is you could see the status is active, and the number of tasks that are running it, everything can be seen here. So if you see, the number of tasks are running is 0, and the number of services that are running is 0. So when you say service, it is just like, for example, if you're having a website which needs to be running around the clock, you can deploy it as a service. Task is like running a batch workload. For example, every day at 6 o'clock, you want to copy all the images from some XYZ server, and it has to be saved on the top of or uploaded on the top or on the top of or on the top of or on the top. I mean, if you want, or on the top of S3 bucket, you can use this option. So the cluster is done. Now I would like to run some container workloads on the top of this cluster. So if you want to run, or if you want to run any sort of cluster task, you need to tell what is the container image to use, what is the CPU and memory requirements for this task. All such things needs to be defined. So in the same left pane, you have an option called as task definitions. You can click the task definitions and you can create a new task definition. If you can either provide it the JSON or you can do it manually. So let's create a task definition. So I would like to say task Nginx task definition. Okay, so this is the Nginx task definition. Now you can tell that this is going to hello world example. And for the sake of this recording, I'm going to use a container image called as Nginx demos hello. It is an image from the open source Docker Hub, which gives you hello message along with the underlying server's IP address. So just for the sake of it, Nginx web server that serves a simple page along with the host name, IP address, and the port. So I would like to use this image. So this is the container image in your company. If or in your case, whatever the container that you wish to run, you can run. And you can also tell what is the port that the container that it is spinning has to open, and and you can give a name of your choice. And you can add more than one port mappings. Port mappings is nothing but whatever the request that is coming and hitting on the server will be forwarded to the respective container. This is called as port forwarding. If you wish to have any environment variables, you can add environment variables like env dev. So, so like that you can use. And if you're having huge variety of environment variables, you can do with this. And next, you can tell where this container has to run. Okay, you can tell that my container has to run on the top of the instance that I have created. Okay, or you can also tell that I would like to run this on the top of Fargate. If you mention it as a Fargate, you don't have to worry about where Amazon runs, what it runs, all these things. Okay, now you can tell for this particular task what can be the maximum CPU and what can be the minimum CPU that can be utilized. I'm telling you can use a maximum of, okay, 0.5 CPU and 1 gigs of memory. Okay, this much amount of CPU and memory will be reserved for your task. So there are certain tasks, okay, which needs to talk to S3 bucket. Or for example, you're running a task or a task, that task is going to copy the images from some XYZ location and it's going to upload it to the S3 bucket. That means this particular container or this task should have access or should be authorized to upload the images to your S3 bucket, which means it needs to have appropriate authorization. For that, you can create an IAM role and you can attach an IAM role, or you can, if you don't have such thing, you can ignore it. If you have such thing where your task has to authenticate and it should be authorized to upload the task, you can do that. Okay, so for now I don't have any such task, so I would like to do this. So these are optional for metric based monitoring. It is absolutely for observability, so in my case I don't want to proceed on that. Okay, now environment variables, health check. So you can also define a health check. So if you want to define a health check, it's your choice again. Scroll down. So configuration is done, monitoring is done, everything is done, create. Now your task definition is getting created. Once the task definition is created, you can tell, hey, I mean, it is just like almost if you know AWS EC2, Elastic Cloud Compute, how you define a cloud template, instance template, telling I want an EC2 instance with T3 micro as a instance type. And you can also tell that I want it as a spot instance and I want XYZ as an AMI and I want 100 gigs of memory, 100 gigs of storage. You are going to define all these things in a template. And whenever you want an instance of the type, you launch it from the template, right? Similarly, if you want to run a task or a container on the top of your ECS cluster, you need to define a task definition. I have defined a task definition. Now, if you wish to run this task definition, you can run it. All you need to do is run the service. Okay, either you can run it as a task or you can run it as a service. If you run it as a service, it will be running round the clock like a website which needs to be hosted on the top of it. Now you can tell if you can have a number of ECS clusters on the top of the same account. In my case, I would have only one ECS account, ECS cluster, which I wish to run on the top of learning ECS cluster. So now you can either launch it, compute options, either you can choose a capacity provider option or launch type option. I would like to go with serverless. So go with this Fargate option, or you can, so in the capacity provider option, you can tell either you can go with Fargate Spot. Spot is extremely cheap, but when you go with Spot, there are high chances that Amazon can terminate your task at any time. But with respect to billing, so you would get 90 to 95% of lesser billing when you compare with Fargate. If the task or the container that you are running, if the task that you're running is of non-development workloads, so go with Spot. If you are running a production grade workloads, go with Fargate option. Or if you wish to run on the top of the EC2 instance that you have created, you can go with this. In my case, I'm going with Fargate option. I'm going with, so scroll down. So either you can run it as a service. I already selected service. Specify the version manually. For each and every version that you run, you can specify a version. So service name I'm telling as hello world. That's all. Desired number of replicas. You can tell some X version, how many copies. That means how many containers has to be run by this particular task. For now, I would like to run it with one task. Okay. And you can also tell where it has to run. We already selected it. Now you need to uh, select a security group, whom all you want to allow, whether you want to allow public or which port you want to open. In our case, we are going with Nginx. Nginx works on port number 8080. So I would like to open the port 8080 to everyone. So I have a security group which allows everything on 0.0.0.0/0. So I'll be using with this. Right now I'm running a batch 51. So I'm allowing this to, which is going to allow everyone. So 0.0.0.0.0 slash on everyone. And load balancer. So I would like to run a container on the top of my EC2 cluster. I'm trying to run, let's take this as an example. I am running my workloads on the top of an ECS cluster, and I would like to expose my workloads to the external network. Okay, I would like to expose it to the external network. And for that, I need to have a load balancer. Okay, I will need a load balancer. And for that load balancer, I'll be using a ALB. Okay, ALB stands for application load balancer. So the traffic which is coming from the internet will come to here, and from here to here, it's going to forward, and your load is going to, and your requests are going to be accepted. Okay, let's see. This is your container, Nginx container. This is your LB load balancer. Okay, so let's go and see. So here Amazon takes care of the complete responsibility. So load balancer type, as per your business, you can either choose application load balancer or network load balancer. And either you can add an application load balancer which is already there, or you can also create a new load balancer. In my case, I do not have any sort of load balancer. So ALB hello world. So this is the load balancer that I would like to create, and choose the container to load balance. So you can have in the cluster that you have created, you can have a number of containers. You are creating the load balancer to send the load to this particular container, hello world container. You can have a number of containers, but my choice is hello world container. So it has to listen on port 80, and this create a target group. So target group name, give it as hello world TG. All the tasks that are related to this container will be running on the top of this target group, and you're also defining health check. Health check information is something which will be given to you by your developer as per the application that you're developing. In my case, I'm running a Nginx container, which will give me, which serves the output. So it gives me slash root as the health check endpoint, and the grace period for every 20 seconds, I want to check the health of it, and that's it. Service auto scaling, you can also mention these policies, but for now, I would like to deploy it. Now it's going to run the container in serverless mode on the top of my ECS cluster. And at the same time, it is also going to provision me a load balancer. So if you see this example, so on the top of the ECS cluster, which it has created, it is going to run my container, and it is also going to provision me a load balancer. And then we'll see whether from the public, whether from the internet, we can access it or not. Let's see. So if you see this, so hello world container deployment is in progress. It will take few minutes of time. Let's wait for it. Typically, it should take less than 1 minute of time. So let's wait for it. ECS becomes very handy if you just want to run containers. So as a part of your development, if you want to run containers after the development, so you can use it. There are certain business which use ECS clusters to run just the containers in the form of their websites or content management systems, any sort of things. So EKS is to run the containers in the form of Kubernetes clusters. In Kubernetes, things are referred as pods. Again, pod contains containers. So ECS cluster is to run containers directly on the top of your Docker runtimes. Okay, let's wait for it to complete. Okay, so always when you are having any plans to create any sort of clusters, always prefer going with Fargate. It's again, if your workloads are production grade, go with Fargate. If your workloads are non-production, which can afford certain amount of downtime when compared to the amount of bill that it is costing you, go with Fargate Spot. So Fargate Spot is going to give you very lesser expenses billing and compared to just normal Fargate. Okay, so let's wait for it. And if you see this in the EC2 panel, so if you go to the load balancer, if you do a refresh, you can even see one load balancer provisioned by it. Okay, now the status of it is active. Now, if you try to access it from the external network, you should get a response. Let's wait for it. I think this task, okay, service is temporarily unavailable because it is still deploying. So let it deploy. Let's wait for 1 more minute. So it should show the status as, okay, it should show you the status as, okay, 1, okay, active, then only it will work. Now just now it came up. Can you see this? Hello world Nginx, this container has been deployed successfully. Now you can see this task is hello world, and this hello world task is running one container, one replica, and one task is in progress. Okay, one task is in progress. Now if you want to, okay, let's see, it will take 20 to 30 seconds of time. Can you see this? You are getting a response. Now if you see the underlying hardware, the underlying server IP address is 172.31.15.19. Okay, and this is where your health check is happening. And if you want to auto refresh, you can do the auto refresh. For every 10 seconds it is going to refresh. Okay, now if you scroll down, now what I would like to do is I would like to scale it up. I would like to scale it up. Now, what I want to do is I want 3 more containers. Okay. For example, if this is a payment application, I want 3 more containers because my business is increasing predominantly. Now, I would like to increase the number of containers to manage the load. So you can do one more thing. Same load balancer sends the load back to the sends the load back to the Okay, so now I would like to spin it. Now let's see, it's going to launch one more container. So let's go ahead and say I want 3 instances of it. For example, edit. Now I say I want 3 instances of it, 3 tasks. Just say update. In 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 seconds, it's going to update it. For example, if one task is in progress, right? Okay, one task is running. Do refresh it. One of 3. Can you see this? It will be very, very quick. So what it's going to do is it's going to create one more server in the backend, and it is going to run your container. So it happens very quick, very, very quick. So you won't be knowing it. Okay, so you can also include auto scaling here, where things will happen based on the load. The number of tasks of that particular task definition will also be increasing predominantly. Okay, this is one advantage of ECS. Okay, all right, we are doing manually, but if you want to scale it up, you can do that. If you see this, 2 of the 3 tasks are loaded. That means now if you refresh it right now, the IP address is 170.15.19, right? Now if you refresh, you would get a response from a different container. Refresh it. Can you see this? 33.88. Now refresh it, you'll get one more, 25.232. So if you take this IP address, every time you're getting a response from a different machine. Okay, for example, so you do a refresh, get a response from a different container. So all I want to prove you is you're getting a response from different containers, load balanced by your load balancer. Okay. So things are very, very easy and ECS, but ECS is not something which has to suit for each and every business. As per the business use case, you need to choose. Choosing the right tool and right utilization gives you the right output. All right. Now, if you don't want three tasks or 3 containers, again, you can select this and you can say, I don't want this much. I want to scale it down back to 1. It's going to scale down. Okay. If you know Kubernetes, it's almost like scaling up your deployment and scaling down your deployment. Having said that, each and every replica is running on the top of a specific server. That's it. Hope you enjoyed the ECS. Just to repeat one more time, EC2 stands for Elastic Container Service. It falls under the category of platform as a service, where you can tell Amazon that I want to run containers. So Amazon is going to give you the platform, and the name of the platform is Elastic Container Services. And you'll be billed based on the number of containers and the size of the container and the amount of processing power, memory, and the storage that you consume. So it goes in a pay-as-you-go model. So again, ECS cluster can be provisioned in 2 modes. One is cluster based EC2 launch type. That means you are responsible for provisioning and maintaining your own EC2 instances. Here, again, the headache comes to your hand. And another approach is Fargate. Fargate is nothing but a serverless approach. A serverless approach is not really serverless. So servers are not managed by you. Amazon in the backend takes care of creating the servers and maintaining the servers and killing the servers when not in need. So in this demo, as a part of this ECS, we have created the infrastructure both in EC2 launch type mode and serverless. Hope you guys like the video. In case if you like the video, ensure you like the video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. And another important thing, so ECS is not free. Once you're done with this, ensure you destroy them. So if you no longer want it, you can delete the service, telling that force delete, I do not want it anymore. Clean it up once you're done with the practice. Okay, it's going to delete it. Done. And once it's done, you can even delete your cluster. So if you click this, select the cluster. Once the cluster is selected, you need to type it, enter the name of your cluster to delete. This is going to delete your cluster. That's it. We are good. We know how to provision the cluster, how to deploy the clusters on the top of the ECS, and you know how to run containers on the top of serverless mode or in the top of your launch mode. And you also know how to create your definitions, and you know how to terminate the environment. That's for it. I'll come back to you with a short video again. Thank you. Bye.